This is me, photographed by a young Polish couple at the beginning of my hike of the GTA, the Grande Traversata delle Alpi. The GTA is said to be the most beautiful long-distance hiking trail in the entire Alps, and that this is not a lie, you will now see for yourself. Have fun! The young couple gave me a ride from the valet station at the train stop. They drove me up the past road. The young couple continued their journey by car through Europe, and my journey began here. Right at the beginning of my tour, history jumps out at me as it happened thousands of years ago. We are here at over 2,000 meters above sea level, and we see how a glacier at that time caused these notches. The ice was once this high or this thick in the Alps. It is summer, but in the mountains that means nothing. This shelter on the lower right of the picture definitely saved my life that night. I, with my lightweight tent, would probably have been lost. The wind was so strong that night that even in this shelter it was not nice to be. The wind howled so loudly that I thought the hut would blow it away. Here briefly presented my equipment. A couple of waterproof protective bags to keep clothes and gear dry, a water filter, dry food for emergencies, and a down sleeping bag. And the next morning a dreamlike weather. Here is a photo of how it looked in my tent. It is a typical two-person tent. These tents weigh on average between 1 and 2 kilograms. The next pictures show a sunrise, taken within 1 hour. How the light conditions in the mountains can change in a few minutes is impressive and fascinating at the same time. In general, the hiking trails are well passable. But here on the path left in the picture, there is still snow. Thus, I had to balance over these large stones. A bit risky, but with a little caution, no problem. This was my first longer tour where I did not wear heavy mountain boots. I had read so much about it and wanted to try it myself. Instead, I wore sneakers. Here, my watch shows sea level to within a few feet. I found this very impressive, since only the weight of the air is measured. As some of you know, you can also use an altimeter as a barometer and thus predict the weather. Certainly helpful in the mountains. In this hut on the GTA, they are called Posto Tapa, I was very kindly received by 3 women between 25 and 50 years. Here, I would like to point out something that is almost never seen in outdoor movies, but it is a daily and constant companion, day after day, especially when you sleep in the tent. It is the drying of equipment. I don't know what was going on with this guy. These animals are usually very shy. They whistle, give a warning signal, and away they go. But this guy didn't seem to notice me. He didn't seem to care that I was standing not 10 feet away from him, watching him. He just kept digging. This paved road may not seem special in a city, but here we are in the high mountains at over 2,000 meters above sea level, which means these stones were all set and worked by human hands without machines. What that took effort, sweat and strength, we cannot imagine. This incredibly beautiful section was surreal, like something out of a fairy tale, as if it had been painted, especially for a film production. Here, too, the rock was removed by human hands. Sweaty work to create a walkable path. Many thanks to these people. When I saw these houses, I was 100% sure that either Asterix or Obelix would come out of one of them. They would welcome me warmly and invite me to eat wild boar. Dreamlike to see something like that in this day and age, isolated somewhere in the Italian Alps. Here, I would like to show you briefly how strong the solar radiation is in the mountains. I was wearing a long top all the time. The shirt I was wearing that day was originally designed for desert areas and was supposed to keep heat and radiation out very well. But you see what happened. Just enjoy the gorgeous scenery. Have fun. The GTA, although in the Alps, is a very secluded trail, a perfect blend between scenic, gorgeous scenery and more recent history, how people lived centuries ago, a few decades ago, or even today. A very hard-deprived life, but also a life of peace and tranquility, far away any civilization, any hustle and bustle, any noise. And for those who are constantly looking for excuses not to exercise, here are 2 men, as a motivational boost. 78 and 83 years old are these two men in this picture. Since childhood, they have regularly gone hiking in the mountains. How fast they were! Unbelievable! What an inspiration! Here I am in Alpe Velia. Within a radius of 50 kilometers, I've heard over and over again from both locals and hikers outside this region that this is supposed to be the most beautiful area far and wide. I know only one thing. For me, it was fantastically beautiful there, and I was allowed to pitch my tent directly in front of the refuge. Even if there is a tent ban in the Alps, I never had problems with it. I was always allowed to pitch my tent somewhere. As thanks, I put each time a small donation into the coffee cash box. And now again, some nice pictures. On the GTA, there are always passages that requires a little more attention. The sign here I find a little exaggerated. And drying time again. I like the contrast between the rich green and the orange sleeping bag. I had this gas stove with me and a little dry food for emergencies, but I cooked only at the beginning of my tour. The paths of the GTA are away from mass tourism, but you always pass a hut or a small village store, and as already mentioned, you should support the huts. These houses are extremely isolated, high in the mountains, very difficult to access, and yet people live here. This butterfly just wouldn't leave me. This is a typical house that you often see on the GTA. Some are still in good conditions, others are collapsing. This woman has been retired for a long time, yet she is in this small store every day, remote in the Italian Alps. No one can be found who wants to take over the business. That was my bed for one night, and I was invited to dinner, too. Mille grazie, Italia. Yes, I had to walk through this greenery. It becomes obvious at such places that the GTA is not very well traveled and isolated. This man produces cheese. The whole summer he is alone with his dog secluded in the mountains. Small stores in the surrounding area sell this cheese down in the valley. The amount of work and effort involved is ridiculously small for the price of the cheese. Many thanks to this man who makes for us in painstaking work this wonderful tasting cheese. This hut is so isolated in the Italian Alps that they get all their goods by helicopter. The logistics regarding food, drink, and items of daily use must be perfectly coordinated. If the helicopter had to come again for just one thing, several days of work would have been lost, because the cost of the flight is enormous. Nevertheless, I and also a couple from the USA were allowed to pitch our tent very close to the hut without any problems and without having to pay anything. Mille grazie. When you consider how remote these stores are in the mountains, I don't think the prices are high. Maybe you can see from this that it is not always more expensive in the country, or that the stores in the city, by the high rental costs perhaps also, set the prices quite nicely upward. This was also a very nice, secluded and quiet place. The next morning I was surrounded by cows. Where they came from was a mystery to me. And once again, the dreamlike mountain world on the tracks of the GTA. Here, fear had gripped me a little. Why? Because the path ended back there at the rubble pile, and I saw no way there it could go on. So I walked up to the pile of rubble and had to realize that it actually went no further without climbing. But that could not be, because the GTA is a hiking trail. So march back again. And then I saw rather accidentally out of the corner of my eye this. There was also no real path to recognize, but it had to go along there. And somehow I made it down. Now you see the longest, most challenging and steepest section on this tour. At that time, I could not guess that this pass was notorious for being one of the most difficult passes of the whole GTA. No wonder I didn't see anyone far and wide here. When I later told the people that I came over this pass, I clearly noticed from the locals how they showed me great respect and almost couldn't believe that I went over this side. Without exaggerating here, the locals treated me like a star. So great was their respect for this achievement. Since I had neither map nor smartphone with me, it should be a little more exciting. I did not know what awaited me at the top. I had set myself on a small hut with warm food. But so it actually looked. Then you realize how small and insignificant you are. A small nothing in the mountain landscape. All around only mountains and loneliness. Generally, that is also very right for me. But here I would have preferred a hut with good food. After I had to digest that, first of all, it meant keep calm. Sow things out and dry, and then calmly and without haste further. This was the most secluded campground I had on this tour. No matter from which side you come, you need at least 4 hours to get to this place, which means that at the latest, after 4 o'clock, no more hikers are to be expected. I have rarely slept as well as I did that night. Alone, far away from any civilization, safe and quiet, dreamlike. And the next morning I was woken up punctually by the marmots. Can there be anything more beautiful? Again, we are at an altitude of well over 2,000 meters above sea level. You can see the faults in the rock and how smooth the rocks are. A sign that there was ice here too, at over 2,000 meters above sea level. Unimaginable. The Monte Rosa Massif is a huge mountain range with many 4,000-meter peaks in the Alps. And here, very close to this 4,000-meter peak, I am at the campsite of Macugnaga, a charming place. I liked it there so much that I'd stayed a day and a half. The best, fastest and most effective way to dry your gear in good weather is to set up your tent and put your stuff in it. It was so hot in the tent that my sleeping bag popped like a popcorn. I estimate the temperature in the tent easily on 50 degrees Celsius. And then these beautiful houses in Macugnaga. Fantastic. Every time I see such houses, I go into raptures. It awakens in me a zest for life and a good mood. The colorful play of flowers. The contrast to the rugged mountains could not be greater. And here are a few pictures from beautiful Macugnaga. this picture almost always brings tears of joy to my eyes. For me, this pictogram symbolizes the beautiful, ideal world. The boy takes the girl by the hand and says, "Come with me, take my hand. I'll take you safely to the other side of the street." And a few days later, I saw something like that in reality and photographed it. Have your handkerchiefs ready. I took this picture with a hidden camera. Here I am in a laundromat washing my clothes. The woman on the right doesn't seem to pay attention to me, but the blonde on the left, mamma mia, she's looking at my... Food connects. In the Italian Alps, in the Italian mountains, on the GTA, this is a must. Here you can still find products like in grandmother's time. Apart from the fact that these products are much healthier, richer in nutrition, vitamins, etc., above all, they taste much better. Unfortunately, in today's modern and fast-paced world, less and less is spent on good food. Also, the reason why our performance is getting worse and we are getting sicker. Yes, I am guilty of this, Nutella. But always forbidding yourselves everything is not a solution either. This painting with the two cyclists I photographed for a friend. As we all know, Italians are excellent soccer players. But they are also a cycling nation, and the best cyclists in the world came and still come from Italy. And now comes an exciting and interesting chapter. Digging for gold. That's right, gold. On the way, I met an older couple from Switzerland who knew a lot about it. If you know where, you can still find some of the shaft entrances today. Isn't that amazing? And all this on the GTA. Yes, I admit it. I like bridges. Now, sit down here for a while. Relax. Comfortable, isn't it? Now you will see a chapter on my GTA journey, which captivated me and amazed me then, but still today. Fascinating and admirable for the following reasons. Every single stone had to be hewn by hand. The road was partly so even as if it had been made with machines. We are in the high mountains. This is very steep and impassable terrain. The road goes up several hundred meters in altitude, almost to 2,800 meters above sea level. This is what it looks like in a typical refuge. The 3-star chef is only there on weekends to cook for you. A few food for an emergency situation that will supply you for the next 1 to 2 days are available. And here the pictogram from earlier in reality. Isn't that dreamlike? The boy took the girl by the hand and just ran. Together, happy and laughing, they ran through the mountains of Italy. As fast as I could, I got the camera out to photograph it. I still get tears of joy today. Here, I made my only bad experience on the GTA. I looked for friendliness here in vain. The prices were overpriced. The soft drink they brought me was warm and not cold. That can happen. But then you should not leave your shoes on the side of the road. Take the shoes and throw them in the nearest trash can. In this case, the gluing of the sole would already be sufficient to be able to walk with the shoes again. Those who are concerned here that their shoe soles will end up similar can take a special sole glue with them. Washing clothes is also a daily ritual, at least in summer and when it is warm and dry. Biodegradable soaps are now standard among hikers. Nevertheless, you should also use them very sparingly. Of course, the best thing for nature would be to use no soap at all. It is therefore not necessary to take a lot of spare clothes. I also remember these two girls very well. I don't know if you can see it. The backpacks of the two girls are almost as big as they are, especially the girl with the red backpack. In the night at this campsite, I saw hundreds of fireflies. Unfortunately, I did not capture this moment with camera. We are at about 2,200 meters above sea level. Just look at how smooth the rocks are, brightly polished by the immense pressure of the ice of the glaciers of that time. Here, in this lake, I could have bathed, but I had washed at the stream only 5 days ago. That there are huge, wide areas in the high mountains in the Alps, at well over 2,000 meters above sea level, I didn't know until then. We are here at about 2,400 meters above sea level. And whether you believe me or not, here I got quite lost. Since I didn't take a map and a cell phone with me, it was a bit difficult with the orientation. Luckily, I had a classic compass with me. Since I knew the rough direction, I ran already times not completely in the wrong direction, but also not in the right one. When I told down in the hut where I ran, all had to laugh. But somehow the Italians also found it funny how I moved so haphazardly through the mountains. This was not to be the last time I kept walking, shall we say, differently than the average hiker. I don't think in the entire history of the GTA there has been a hiker before or after me who has taken as many detours and gone wrong as often as I have. However, this has not disturbed me in the slightest. On the contrary, I always thought it was nice of the Italians to tease me in a fun way. Unfortunately, you can't fully see the impressive thing in the next picture, because it only shows a section of the landscape. What was special about these houses was their remoteness. Of course, all houses here in the mountains are extremely secluded. But here I couldn't find a path leading to or from the house. Unbelievable. I looked for several minutes to find a way. Nothing. The 3-star cook from the hut from earlier unfortunately could not accompany me. And so I had to take care of myself. Very refreshing and delicious were the fruits in the tube. The fruit content was very high. There was nothing to give away. Unfortunately, I could not find these fruit tubes anywhere later. That down there is the little town of Europa. The sanctuary of Europa has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 2003. And here you see a young mother. I witnessed a birth, even if only from a distance. In some cultures, that's supposed to bring good luck. If you look very closely, you can see the placenta. Congratulations, Mom, and all the best for you and your child. Here I want to show you how some people here in the mountain regions depend on tourism, including us hikers. The left house, the modern and more beautiful one, is for us guests. In the right house lives the family. The wife, together with her mother, cooks, cleans, and washes for us. Her husband works down in the valley in the city. He comes home only on weekends. The friendliness, the incredibly good food, and the very nice accommodations are almost legendary on the GTA at this hostel. I did not want to make the woman more work than she already had and slept outside in the meadow in my tent. Nevertheless, I paid the woman voluntarily the price as if I had slept in the house. Here my GTA journey comes to an end for this time. I still go down the street until I get on the train in Pont Saint Martin and go home via Milan, etc. But before the station, I saw an ice cream parlor. That the Italians make the best ice cream is no secret. But this small, family-run ice cream parlor seemed to be known in a large area for its ice cream. I ate a big sundae and drank 3 more large milkshakes. Super delicious. Super delicious. Mille grazie, Italia.